Imagine living at the bottom of one of the most famous places on Earth, a place where millions of tourists visit every year. Yet deep inside the Grand Canyon, there is a Native American tribe that has called this place home for nearly 1,000 years. They never abandoned it, they never forgot it, and even today, reaching their village isn't as simple as driving a car. You must hike for hours through the canyon or arrive by helicopter. This is the incredible story of the Havasupai, the people of the blue-green water. And once you see how they live, you may never look at the Grand Canyon the same way again. When most people think of the Grand Canyon, they imagine towering cliffs, dry desert, and endless rock formations. But hidden nearly 3,000 feet below the canyon rim lies one of America's most beautiful secrets. A small village surrounded by waterfalls, cottonwood trees, and crystal-clear blue-green streams. This is Supai Village, the home of the Havasupai people. The name Havasupai means the people of the blue-green water, and if you've ever seen the water flowing through their homeland, you immediately understand why. Its brilliant turquoise color almost looks unreal. But for the Havasupai, this isn't a tourist attraction, it is home. Their ancestors lived here centuries before Europeans ever reached North America, long before roads, hotels, or national parks. The canyon gave them everything they needed: fresh water, rich soil, wildlife, and protection from the harsh desert above. Generation after generation, they built their lives around this extraordinary place. But living here has never been easy. In fact, even today, every piece of food, every building material, and many daily supplies must travel deep into the canyon before reaching the village. So why would anyone choose to stay here? The answer lies in a history that few people know, and it changed everything for the Havasupai. 1,000 years of survival. For nearly 1,000 years, the Havasupai have lived in and around the Grand Canyon. While kingdoms rose and fell across the world, their people continued farming beside the blue-green waters of Havasu Creek. They grew corn, beans, squash, melons, and other crops in the fertile canyon soil. During different seasons, they also hunted deer, gathered wild plants, and carefully used the canyon's natural resources. Every season had a purpose, every spring had a meaning, and every trail through the canyon carried the footsteps of countless generations. To the Havasupai, this land was never something to own, it was something to protect. Their stories, their ceremonies, and their identity were all connected to these cliffs, streams, and waterfalls. But in the late 1800s, everything began to change. As more settlers moved into the American West, native lands were claimed by the United States. The Havasupai were forced onto a much smaller reservation. They lost access to most of the land their ancestors had used for generations. The place they had protected for centuries was suddenly no longer considered theirs. Imagine waking up one day and being told that the mountains, the rivers, and the valleys your family had always known now belonged to someone else. For the Havasupai, that was reality. Yet they refused to disappear. They stayed. They protected their language. They passed down their traditions, and they kept telling their children, "We belong to this canyon." Years later, their determination would lead to an extraordinary victory, a victory that very few people outside the Native American community have ever heard about. And that victory changed the future of the Havasupai. For decades, the Havasupai never stopped fighting for their homeland. They spoke before government officials, they worked with supporters, and they refused to let their history be forgotten. Then, after years of determination, something remarkable happened. In 1975, the United States returned a large portion of their ancestral homeland to the Havasupai. It was one of the most significant land restoration victories for a Native American tribe in American history.
No, they didn't get back everything they had lost, but they regained thousands of acres that their ancestors had called home for generations. For the Havasupai, this wasn't just land, it was part of who they are. Today, their community remains one of the most remote in the United States. There are no roads leading directly to Supai village, no cars driving through the canyon. Even everyday supplies often travel by pack mules along narrow canyon trails. Imagine carrying everything needed for a community through steep desert cliffs. That is still part of daily life. But despite these challenges, the Havasupai continue to preserve what matters most. Many families still pass down their language to younger generations. Traditional ceremonies remain an important part of community life. Children grow up hearing stories that have been shared for centuries. While the outside world changes at an incredible pace, the Havasupai continue working to protect both their culture and the fragile beauty of their homeland. Yet another challenge has grown in recent decades. Ironically, it came from the very people who admire the canyon the most: millions of tourists. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people dream of seeing the blue-green waterfalls of Havasu Creek. For many visitors, it's the trip of a lifetime. But for the Havasupai, this is not just a beautiful destination, it is home. Tourism has brought new opportunities. It supports many local jobs and businesses, but it has also created new challenges. More visitors mean greater pressure on the land, more waste, and more responsibility to protect the fragile environment that has sustained the Havasupai for centuries. Finding the balance between welcoming visitors and preserving their homeland is an ongoing challenge. Despite everything they have experienced, the Havasupai are still here. Their language is still spoken, their traditions are still practiced, their connection to the canyon remains as strong as ever. For them, the Grand Canyon is more than a natural wonder. It is a living part of their history. Every cliff, every trail, and every stream carries the memory of the generations who came before them. In a world where many ancient cultures have disappeared, the Havasupai remind us that preserving a culture is just as important as preserving nature. Their story is not only about survival, it is about identity, respect, and the determination to protect a way of life that has endured for centuries. So the next time you see a photo of the Grand Canyon, remember this: hidden far below the canyon rim, there is a community that never truly left, a people whose roots run as deep as the canyon itself. And perhaps the greatest treasure of the Grand Canyon has never been the landscape. It has always been the people who call it home. What do you think? Should indigenous communities continue protecting their traditions even as the modern world changes around them? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed true stories about Native American history that most people have never heard, subscribe for more.